Folks, Bobo here. Just returned from a high-speed pass through Kroger. My laundry list in that respect was getting a little bit ahead of me, so I had to relieve the pressure. At any rate, the trip to Kroger and back gave me some time to think about this next video I want to talk with you about. Shades asked about the difference between a reserve and a regular officer commission. So, in 1968, when I came on active duty through the Air Force ROTC program, I was commissioned as a reserve officer. At the time, and I'm sure it's probably still the same way today, the students who go through the Air Force Academy are commissioned as regular officers, and only the top distinguished graduates through the Air Force ROTC program receive regular commissions. The rest of us in steerage collect reserve commissions. And the same could be held true for those who graduate from OTS. There are a select few that graduate as distinguished graduates, and they are also tendered a regular commission. At any rate, with my 2.05 ACUM as I graduated, I wasn't a threat to any of the pretty kids. So I took my reserve commission and was just happy as heck with it. I was just thrilled to be on active duty. So off I went. My first 6 months on active duty was spent at school at Lowry Air Force Base, training as a munitions officer. And then from there I went to Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, where I was a weapons load officer. Now, after we graduated, I can't remember the exact timing of it. Maybe somebody can help me out here. It seems that there were certain year points where they held regular officer commissioning boards. What I mean is that was for those reserve officers like myself to be looked at and then offered a regular commission if our OER index, our performance warranted it. So I think the boards at that time, I seem to remember, were like at the 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11 year points, phase points. I could be a little bit off on the earlier numbers, but I'm pretty close. Anyway, there were distinct advantages to being a regular officer over a reserve officer. Being a regular officer, as far as the Air Force can guarantee anything, guaranteed you 20 years service and 28 years if you wanted to stay beyond, or 28 and a half, whatever. Reserve officer, you're always on the hook. If they had a RIF, a reduction in force, you were prime meat to go. You were toast, if it hit real bad. And I actually saw that happen in 1975. They came, as guys were coming back from Vietnam, we had quite an overage of pilots, so they did RIF quite a few guys. And we lost some guys in our squadron. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, when I met my first board for consideration to become a regular officer, I did not have a very high OER index. Now, OER is Officer Efficiency Report. They call it some other name now because we got a new below the zone captain or something that thought of another great idea. Give me a break. Okay, I know what it is. I don't care. So my OER index was right around 8.3. In those days, there are two sides to the OER. And on the front side, if you get it firewall, everything you're walking on water, is a 9. And then you flip it over, there's 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being the highest. So I got a 8.3. That means I got an 8 on the front page and a 3 on the back page, which in those days was, like a B plus maybe, best explained, A minus, B plus. It afforded you the opportunity to show upward mobility, but you weren't going to get any of the bennies with an 8.3 index. But being the FNG, the new guy in the squadron, that first 6 months or whatever it was, an 8.3 was what most of us got at that time. So there I am, going into that first board, I had a training report from munition school and an 8.3. Wow. Then I got another OER another 6 months later, and I got another 8.3. I wasn't paying a lot of attention where I probably should have, in retrospect. That's on me. But my goodness, they take a second lieutenant out of college. And here I was, brand new second lieutenant. I bought a 1969 Firebird. I was first in Denver, Colorado, and then I was in Las Vegas. No adult supervision, and I just discovered hair on my crotch, and I was having a hell of a great time. Oh, I was also getting a paycheck, too. Not very much, mind you, but I was getting a paycheck. And that's probably why the 8.3s started stacking up. Plus, I look back, I'll be very candid, there was a certain degree of immaturity that I exhibited at that time. So I missed out on a 2-year board, and then at that time, I found myself going into pilot training. Well, when I got into pilot training, that took me out of the OER file, or track, if you will, and I come out of pilot training with 3 years service now, and 2 training reports and 2 8.3s. Not really competitive. Then I go up to McGuire Air Force Base after another 3 months of training. And my first OER then up there was another 8.3. Boy, I'm just tearing up the program. So the OERs were written a lot of times by guys we didn't even know. We rarely even met or even saw. But be that as it may, I came up to my 5-year board. And again, I just kind of got passed by. There was nothing remarkable for anybody to see one way or the other, except training reports and 8.3s. Then in 1973, which would have been into my 5-year point, I went over to Southeast Asia, and there I began picking up 9.4s. So I get this 9.4, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. Upgraded to aircraft commander and instructor pilot, so the career progression was beginning to show. And I come back and I go into training again, into the T-38. And that took about 4 or 5 months to get fully qualified. And it was about that time I come up, well, a little bit after that, I come up to my 7-year point. Now this was remarkable at the 7-year point. I knew I was meeting the regular officer board, and I made a mental note of it, but I didn't fret about it very much. And then one day, Colonel Dick Hansen comes down to my office. I was the O-Flight commander. He comes into the office, and so of course I stood up and greeted him, and he said, "Have a seat." So we sat down, and he said, "Bob, I hate to tell you, I have to tell you, I hate to tell you, but you did not pick up a regular officer commission." And I remember being indifferent toward it at that point. I said, "Well, sir, that's okay. I'll continuing on, keep on keeping on." He said, I don't understand it, Bob. I went over and looked at your record, and it's pretty darn good." He said, "You're really beginning to show potential." And he says, "I thought sure you were a shoe-in for it." But he said, I can't explain it. I don't know." And I said, "Well, sir, don't worry about it." He was more distressed about it than I was. That's one takeaway I took from that. At any rate, then from Vance Air Force Base, I went down to Randolph to command, and from Randolph, it was there they had the 11-year promotion board, or the 11-year regular officer board, and at that time I was tendered a regular officer appointment, and from there I just continued on, never looked back. But the takeaway, a couple of them was, I look back and I don't fault the system. It just was what it was. I probably could have done a little bit more if I had knuckled down a little bit better and maybe learned how to play the game a little sooner than I did. But that just wasn't me. I was having too damn much fun. And as I look back on it today, it really didn't hurt me a bit. If anything, it helped me because I got to watch how a real leader, a commander, a leader, if you will, handles situations like this. Colonel Hanson, in coming down to my office and sitting there talking with me in the manner he did, it just really touched my heart, and it still does today. And it was men like him I attempted to emulate as I began moving up the career chain, if you will. I always just remembered how sincere he was. And like I said, he was more distraught than I was. At any rate, I eventually did get a regular commission, and it served me well throughout the rest of my career. The next two videos, I'm going to talk about a little bit, without going into great depth, about the OER system, the Officer Efficiency Report System. And then the last of this thread will be on PME, Professional Military Education. Those two are bound to become as much of a crowd pleaser as this one is. At any rate, good to see everybody. Hope you're having a nice afternoon. This is Bubbo, Basic Gear. Stop.